In just one calendar month, from mid-September to mid-October 1977, Anatoly Biryukov committed 5 abductions of babies, whom he later raped and killed. The crimes of the capital Maniac were so heinous that the General Secretary of the Central Committee of the CPSU, Leonid Brezhnev, personally followed the progress of the case. And when the criminal was finally caught, many refused to believe their eyes. The killer and rapist of babies turned out to be not a crazy recidivist psychopath, but the son of a famous general and hero of the Soviet Union. Nightmare Prologue. For the first time, Anatoly Biryukov came to the attention of law enforcement agencies back in 1971. Then the man tried to steal a stroller that was near the children's hospital. Fortunately, the mother of the child arrived in time and made a scandal. The man was detained by policemen who came to the rescue. However, the quiet and outwardly harmless kidnapper managed to circle the policemen around his finger. He convinced them that he did not pursue any criminal goals. He just had a playful mood. For pedagogical purposes, he decided to play the unlucky mother who left the stroller with the child unattended. To be more careful in the future. Biryukov admitted that the joke was not very successful, and the police, shaking their fingers at him, let him go, limiting themselves to a small administrative fine. At that time, even in a nightmare, no one could have imagined how this story would ultimately end. A few months later, the man was again caught trying to steal a wheelchair. This time he explained that he had coveted a scarce stroller, and that he had a baby in it he did not foresee. Some sources report that he was sentenced to 3 years in prison for stealing a stroller. However, other materials state that Biryukov had no criminal record at the time of his arrest in 1977. In this case, he apparently managed to hush up the case, compensate the victims for damages, and avoid trial. One way or another, for several years, Biryukov calmed down and did not commit any crimes, living the ordinary life of a Soviet citizen. On September 16, 1977, the corpse of a baby was found in one of the houses in the Moscow district of Shukino. A 3-month-old girl was killed by a knife in the stomach and left on the windowsill in the entrance. An empty stroller was found at the entrance to the entrance. The investigators were in trouble. What motive could a person have for killing a baby? Maybe these are unlucky parents who lead an asocial lifestyle and decide to get rid of the child? Or a madman who has begun a seasonal exacerbation? The investigators rejected the first 2 versions after a few days. The child was well cared for, the family was prosperous, the victims had no enemies or conflicts with anyone. The child's mother at the time of the abduction was in the children's dairy kitchen, near which she left the stroller for just a couple of minutes. After the first murder, Biryukov finally stopped restraining himself. He became simply obsessed. 3 days later, on September 19th, he kidnapped a 3-month-old girl from a stroller left near the Detsky Mir store. This time there were several people who saw the kidnapper. However, they described it in rather general terms. And most importantly, no one could see the main sign of the criminal, by which he could be identified: a huge scar on his left cheek, which he received as a child. According to one version, he accidentally knocked over a pot of boiling water. According to another, he unsuccessfully tried to extract gunpowder from the cartridge. The second kidnapping of an infant in 3 days was hardly a coincidence. Everything indicated that a dangerous pervert maniac had wound up in the capital. The search for the missing girl and her abductor was taken under personal control by the Minister of Internal Affairs Nikolai Shelikov, who reported on the maniac to Brezhnev. Enormous forces were thrown in search of the kidnapped woman. For several weeks the police combed the whole of Moscow, stopped every single man with a child. Orientations towards the girl and the kidnapper went to other areas. A week later, another girl was abducted. Her corpse was soon discovered in one of the wastelands. A 3-month-old child was sexually abused, which caused his death. A few days later, another child was found under similar circumstances. And then more. In early October, the body of a girl abducted on September 19th is found in one of the dumps. She was also subjected to sexual violence. Even seasoned criminal investigators were stunned. Never in their practice had they encountered a criminal of this kind. An unknown person abducted and raped infants between the ages of 3 and 6 months, both boys and girls. All crimes followed the same pattern. The man took the child out of the stroller, left unattended for several minutes, and then the corpse was found in a wasteland or landfill. The perpetrator, apparently, could not control himself. He knew perfectly well that after 5 murders of babies in 1 month, the entire Metropolitan Police would be looking for him. However, he did not think to stop. Biryukov knew perfectly well that the entire Metropolitan Police were looking for him, but he did not even think of hiding. Instead, he decided to start hunting in the suburbs. On October 21st, in Chekhov, he abducted a baby from a stroller near a store. But this time he was out of luck. At that moment, when he had already taken the baby in his arms, his mother came out of the store and immediately began to call for help. Several passers-by who chased the maniac responded to the girl's call. Biryukov grabbed the child and tried to get away from the pursuers in the yards. In the end, the child had to be left. He burdened the not-too-sports criminal. After a long chase, he managed to break away from his pursuers, but during this time he was seen by dozens of witnesses. This time they all left a very accurate description of the criminal, describing his main feature, a scar on his cheek. Armed with an accurate identikit, the policemen began to bypass all the capital's enterprises. On October 24th, luck smiled at them. In one of the construction departments, he was identified as a locksmith, Anatoly Biryukov. To everyone's surprise, the scarred man was not a recidivist degenerate or a psychopathic lunatic. On the contrary, his colleagues described him as a quiet, modest and family man, for whom there were no oddities. Moreover, the suspect in the cruelest crimes turned out to be the son of a very well-deserved person. His father was Lieutenant General Nikolai Biryukov, a famous military leader of the Stalin era. He commanded a division in the Battle of Stalingrad, then led the Corps. He led the combined regiment at the Victory Parade in June 1945. Biryukov was awarded the Star of the Hero of the Soviet Union, 2 Orders of Lenin, 2 Orders of Suvorov, 4 Orders of the Red Banner, the American Order of the Legion of Honor, and was an honorary citizen of several Soviet cities. The investigators could not understand how such a distinguished person could have such a disgusting son. The explanation was soon given by the maniac himself. According to him, everything was fine. He did not think about anything like that until his marriage cracked. After the birth of the child, the wife weaned him from her body. Because of the disordered sexual life, the craziest fantasies began to come to Biryukov's head. At first, he thought about having a mistress, but he did not succeed. The man was not distinguished by particular self-confidence and the ability to start novels. Biryukov then planned to seduce a teenage girl. He abandoned this idea due to fear of exposure and subsequent troubles. In the end, Biryukov came up with the idea of kidnapping babies. First, they were silent and could not testify against him. Secondly, they could not resist. Numerous witnesses to the September and October abductions confidently identified him. In addition, Biryukov acknowledged other autumn abductions of babies. He did not try to deny guilt by choosing another line of defense. The maniac tried to present himself as a victim of circumstances, complexes and self-doubt because of his appearance, an evil wife who refused him sex, and so on. However, it was pointless. Biryukov's crimes were too terrible to show him any leniency. The maniac was declared sane and sentenced to death. After the trial, he tried to take his own life, but failed. All of his requests for clemency were also denied. In February 1979, one of the most heinous maniacs in the history of mankind was shot. This is where our video ends. Friends, I will be very grateful if you just like, write a comment and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for being with us.